Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. Again, I am Kaylee Batesman, the content director at She Can Code, and today we are discussing menopause, the impact on women returners and tech employers. Now, women in their 40s to 50s are the fastest growing cohort in the UK workplace, but nearly 50% of women say their menopause symptoms have a negative impact on their work. Understanding and addressing the challenges posed by menopause in the workplace can contribute to a more inclusive and supportive environment for women experiencing this life transition. Now, thankfully, I've got two wonderful guests with me today. I've got the fabulous Sasha Burgoyne, the co-founder of TechSwitch, to discuss how TechSwitch is supporting its female employees who are experiencing menopause symptoms. And I've got the wonderful Anna Price, the founder of Perimenopausal, whom TechSwitch partnered with recently. And today we're going to talk all things menopause in the workplace. So welcome, Sasha and Anna. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you both with us. And we're going to set the scene a little bit with some background about both of you, if that's okay. So Sasha, should we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Sasha and I'm co-founder of TechSwitch. So we probably kicked off TechSwitch at the beginning of 2021 after we had a brief stall to our start due to a certain global event. And really the aim has always been to help people who want to get into the tech industry, particularly into software development, and who potentially looked at it and thought, oh, I don't know how I get into it. I don't know if it's for me. I don't see myself represented there, to give them that route into tech, which is what I always wanted when I was first starting out. And I was like, wow, now let's create that.
Yeah.
And as a result, we primarily work with returners and career switchers, and it's people from all sorts of age groups. But I'd say that primarily the people who we tend to end up having come through TechSwitch are probably in their early 30s to 50s. So it's quite a range, but it does mean that obviously they're at a certain stage of life where menopause and perimenopause can start to come into effect. So that's why we partnered with Perimenopause.
And did you switch into tech? What was your way in?
I did. I have an utterly bizarre route into tech. So I did an arts degree. I did classics, so super relevant, really useful. And I left university and I didn't really know what to do. And I said, well, I like helping people and I like talking to people. And someone said, oh, you should go and be a recruiter. So I worked for a recruitment agency for a few months and I was recruiting software developers. And the whole time, all I was thinking was everything they talk about is so much more interesting than what I was doing. And I found that recruiting just wasn't quite for me. So I desperately tried to find a way into the tech industry. And I eventually took a role, which, gosh, I think at the time was called like sales executive or something at a little fashion e-commerce, like mobile app startup. And within, I think about a year and a half, I was a product manager and I was managing 2 of their software development teams. I was building a whole different project for them. And that was it. I was hooked. And since then, I've learned to code. I've done a bunch of other things. And that was why I thought, you know what, if I'd only known upon leaving university that actually someone who has a classics degree can do this. They can code, they can be a software developer. It doesn't matter what your background is. If it's something you're passionate about, and it's something you're interested in, there's a role for you here. So yes, I did. I did find a weird way into tech.
Perfect. We love to hear the weird and wonderful routes into technology on this podcast, and I have heard a few. So it was great to hear another transition. Anna, yourself, can you tell us a little bit about your background, please?
I can. So I'm Anna. So I founded Period and Pause, which is actually a social enterprise, and it's dedicated to raising awareness of menstrual health and menopause. The reason I started this is because actually I suffered with severe endometriosis since a teenager. I'm now 46. And I had to go through medical menopause and then surgical menopause 2 years ago.
Right.
And which was really, really full on. Actually, I had to stop working completely. I've taken 2 years out, basically put my company on hold. And whilst I was recovering, I thought, I need to do something about this. This is just this, there's not enough help out there or support. And why should women essentially be suffering and feeling so alone often in this this way, really. So I trained as a menopause coach, workplace coach, whilst I was recovering. The initial ideas were to go into schools and teach about menstrual health and what to do if something is wrong and to spot the signs. But that led on to actually realising that women in work who are perimenopausal really need support to be able to stay, because 1 in 3 will actually consider reducing hours or leaving work because of their symptoms.
Yeah.
And it's just not fair, is it? We need to be able to thrive at work, enjoy our work, and not let our perimenopause and menopause symptoms stop us. So that's why we joined up with Sasha and TechSwitch.
Amazing.
To see what we can do together. Yeah.
Let's go a little bit about perimenopause and what your aims are, and obviously, you know, you partnered with TechSwitch. So what are your aims there?
With TechSwitch particularly, it's to help women, the women that they work with, the women returners, to navigate if they are perimenopausal or menopausal, to navigate their journey as best they can. Because often, I think Sasha will agree, women returners can potentially have confidence issues, feel that they, you know, they're in a very male-dominated environment. They're usually older than the general tech person. Am I right, Sasha? Is that correct? Yeah. And actually, when you add in perimenopausal symptoms, everything can become a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know, so to sort of mentor women and help them on that journey, so that's not affecting their work or affecting it as small amount as you know, as limited. What would you say that word is? As you know, not impacting them as much as it could.
I completely agree. And Sasha, from your side, you know, why did you feel it was the right time to partner with Perimenopause? Was it something that your female workforce were asking for, or your leadership maybe suddenly noticed, or what kind of sparked that?
Yeah, so it's something we'd always obviously known, is that the demographic that we attracted was around that sort of age group that it particularly impacts. And we'd really noticed that, particularly for women returning from work, returning to work, they are often juggling so many different responsibilities. Like, they will have been very used to often being the primary caregiver. They will often have been doing a lot of those bits and pieces, and them, as they go through the course, they're trying to learn that actually that all needs to be shared out now. They're going to be going back into a working role. And on top of that, if you're also perimenopausal, it's so much, and it was so much that they had to go through and had to cope with. And we wanted to make sure that we provided a space in which they were able to talk about any of the challenges that they might be going through, because we support them not just in terms of the actual training, but we want to make sure that they feel confident in going back to work. So we mentor them through various different things, and like Anna said, a huge amount of the time it's confidence, and them being able to talk to us and be open and honest about the particular issues that were affecting them, or to just have someone who knows that the symptoms aren't just hot flushes, for example, that there's a lot of different things that can come up, has been really, really helpful for our learners. And it helps them to understand as well that we aren't going to find them a job afterwards that is going to completely disregard all of that. So I think that's been a key part of it for us.
Yeah, I think you're right with the hot flushes. Everybody just thinks that's it. I saw a title to an event which was Menopause, It's More Than Desk Fan, which I thought absolutely summed that up. It is just more than giving somebody a desk fan. Anna, when employers approach you, are they the types of things, like Sasha just said, that's kind of when you're approached, it's, you know, kind of, our ladies need some support. It's kind of, we understand that they need some support, but perhaps we're not quite sure how to step in there. So that's kind of where you come in. Exactly.
It's not just about actually supporting women, it's about the whole culture of the company, everyone understanding what the menopause is, because actually menopause affects everybody, doesn't it? Even if you're not going through perimenopause and the symptoms, you know, your colleagues will be affected your home life. You know, you're juggling so much. So we do training with workplace training for managers. It's really important that line managers and managers understand and can talk easily to their staff, and that there's an open door, essentially, because it's been such a taboo, hasn't it, menopause? Even, you know, 2 years ago, it was hard to find information. And Dr. Louise Newson is doing amazing work in getting out so much information through her Balance app and social media. So I really feel, you know, everyone needs to be talking about it. The workplace training is really helpful for the all staff, including the managers, so that there's an open culture and we can move forwards, and it's better for the future generations. You know,
Yes.
it shouldn't be such a stigma. And actually, there's so much misunderstanding around menopause. People think, yes, I've got a hot flush, but actually that's quite far down the line, because there's all sorts of symptoms, you know, that can happen. Brain fog, tiredness. You know, I think we'll talk about that in a moment, won't we?
Yeah, because I wanted to ask you a bit, and as you said, people tend to think of menopause as having physical symptoms as well, but it can be far more than that. Kind of, it can be added anxiety and stress. And Sasha, you touched upon that a little bit as well, of just being able to cope.
Exactly.
And it is that thing, though, isn't it? Is that as you said, Anna, you used the word taboo, and I think it's just a misunderstanding as well. Menopause is far more than physical symptoms.
There's a huge amount of emotional symptoms. I mean, and that's why often, well, we'll run through the emotional symptoms, some of them, but, you know, so often it's misdiagnosed by GPs as mental health issues, and perhaps you've got joint pain, but actually
Yes.
these things are linked often. So, you know, making a list of your symptoms is super important. But going back to the emotional, you know, mental side effects can be anxiety, low mood, forms of depression, you know, nervousness, palpitations can cause anxiety, panic attacks. It really is very varied and very different for everyone, actually. Not one person is the same. And it also depends what else is going on in life. If there's, you know, you have a lot, you're juggling at home, you might not be getting enough sleep because you've got hot flashes, for example, or you're anxious. This can really have an impact on your work. So, you know, being able to talk about what you need at work and reasonable adjustments is super important. And firstly, we need to recognise what the symptoms are. And that's the starting point, really, for each.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important for us to raise awareness about menopause
and just to talk about it more. Yeah, Sasha, I can see you nodding about asking, just being able to ask in the workplace what you know, what support is there for me, I suppose, is not all workplaces offer that, but that can be a godsend, can't it, to women, just to be able to ask what they need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's about having, a lot of workplaces will often have some sort of provision around, particularly if you have a disability, there's reasonable adjustments. And I think a lot of people come into this not realizing that that could apply to them with the menopause as well. And I think that is partly to do with not understanding that those symptoms might be menopause related rather than just, you know, getting older or feeling tired. And certainly a lot of our learners have said that the decision-making aspect of it and how it can affect your decision-making really has made them struggle, because obviously they've made a big life decision to come onto our course and to come and do things, and then suddenly they think, oh no, what if I've made a mistake? What if I'm terrible at this? What if I don't get? And there's all of these different what ifs going around. And I think, you know, that's in our quite supportive environment where they're learning and they're not having to worry about, at that point, you know, performing well at work. And it's so much more amplified if at the same time you're thinking, oh my goodness, you know, I'm responsible for my team, or I'm responsible for something going on at work. And at the same time, I'm worried that I'm not as competent as I was, or I'm like forgetting things, and there's all these different things. And I suffer from brain fog because I have a condition which happens to affect that. And so I understand a lot of what they go through, and it is debilitating. It really is. And it's so hard to know when it's happening to you, I think, as well. And that makes it so hard sometimes to ask for help, because all you see while you're going through it is, oh gosh, I'm just absolutely useless at the moment, I can't do anything.
Yes.
And it's only afterwards that you think, oh, I know why that was. So actually
Yes.
being able to talk to someone in advance of that and let them know that that could be happening, and that here are some of the things that they can do to make it easier for you, or that you might need support with, is so much more helpful.
And you're right. I think because symptoms will come along so slowly, you do not notice. And I'm not at that stage yet, but I had something similar recently, where the symptoms had come on so slowly, and it was something to me so silly as it was a B12 deficiency. Now, nobody had even pointed out what that is, but because it came on so slow, when I finally had the blood test, and they said yours is 66 and it should be something like between 300 and 600. And I was like, that's a little low.
Yeah.
But once I started getting treatment, all the colours flooded back and I could see the world and I could smell differently. And I was like, how do I know that everything was being turned down, because it happened so slowly? And the same with menopause. Everything will just happen so slowly that you won't think, I need to go to the doctors about these small things that are happening in my day to day, until, you know, they all build up and then somebody can help you with something and you think, oh gosh, it wasn't just me. The brain fog wasn't just me, you know, it was lots of different little things. But it's so relieving when somebody says to you, you know what, it wasn't just you need some help in a certain area in your life, which must be
so true.
Invaluable if, you know, if yourself and a perimenopause or an employer steps in to say, actually there's some help here for you, and just to say, you know, it's not just you, there are lots of other people feeling this way, and also, you know, there's something that we can help you with. And I wanted to ask you both a little bit as well about, for instance, if an employer, if you're not as lucky to work with somebody like perimenopause, what can employers do to support women going through menopause who might be struggling with their symptoms? Is there anything that you think employers could step in and help with?
Yeah, there's lots. I think there's lots they can do. They can research, they can reach out to perimenopause, and they can research menopause. There's some simple things they can do in the workplace, just having that open conversations, you know, maybe starting, I don't know, they could get some books and have them in a little cafe area, just realize that people are welcome to talk, but simple things they could do, you know, allowing women to go for rest breaks when they need to. Women need to start late or have flexible working. That's really important, really helpful. I think just having conversations reduces anxiety for women. You know, just knowing it's okay. We're gonna, you know, we've got support here. Taking away the anxiety is a huge thing, because then you're able to just relax, go with it. It's going to be okay. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, just being able to talk about it and take away the stress. Sasha, is that something that you try and do at TechSwitch? As Anna was saying, maybe like late starts, you know, whatever people need, just feel like they can ask, and it's not always granted, I suppose. It depends on what they're asking, but at least they can have the conversation.
Yeah, we do, and we already have relatively flexible hours anyway, because, you know, a lot of people are returners or career switchers, and they have children or they have different commitments that they need to work around anyway. So we don't start our training until 10 and we finish it at 4. So that means that everyone can work around that a little bit. But equally, if you're not, if you need to take a little bit of a break, if you need to step away from something, that's completely fine. If there's a sudden emergency, we're completely fine with that. It's not a problem. And we have a weekly chats through, well, we have a bunch of different routes through which we have support systems. So there are 3 different mentors that everyone has. One is their kind of technical mentor, another is their career mentor, and then the other is more of a pastoral care. But really that's there so that each person has 3 opportunities to find someone that they feel they can really talk to, and feel like they have someone that they can explain if there's anything going on to. So we want to make sure that that option is there for everyone. And I think that a big part of what workplaces can do is actually talk to managers about how this is something that they might start seeing, and how to approach it, how to talk about it, because I think then again it opens that conversation up a little bit. It makes it a lot easier for everyone, because it's a scary topic to talk about, particularly if you're going through that and you're having to ask for like adjustments and that sort of thing. As someone who's had to do that, often it can feel like there's a bit of, you can feel like you're a bit weak, or like you're saying, oh, I can't do this, or I can't manage. And it's so much easier if you say, I have this condition, or I'm going through this, and someone says, okay, I'm so glad you told me. Here are all of the things that we can do, and if you think of anything else, like, we can do that. We can, like, we're going to work with you on it, rather than, you know, just sort of even telling someone and them just panicking and not really knowing what to do or what to say.
Yes, because there is that feeling of, I mean, you said there, if you step forward, then you might be feeling like, you know, I'm being weak in some area, I don't want to ask for help. I also wanted to ask you a little bit about how do our listeners who are wondering how they approach awkward conversations at work, because they might have that feeling that they're sounding demanding as well, like you're demanding certain things and changes. And, you know, how do you approach conversations like menopause when, you know, you don't want to come off as, you know, just asking for the world, or whatever it may be?
Honestly, I've had such a battle with this myself because I've been, you know, I've had to ask for various different adjustments, and it's still, you know, I think it's been over 3 years now since my diagnosis, and I still struggle with it a little bit in explaining to people what's going on. And I think a lot of it is about finding what your comfort zone is with things. So if you want to tell someone everything that's happening, like all your symptoms, you can tell them, because sometimes that, particularly for me, helps me explain what I'm actually going through. And I think also it can help you feel like it's been demystified a bit. But equally, if you're not comfortable with any of that and you want to say, actually, I need these adjustments, you can be very broad, you can be pretty vague. That's completely okay. Work out what you are comfortable with, and definitely start by finding someone who you think you can talk to about it, whether they are actually in your line management or not. If you can at least start having those conversations, it will help you figure out the things that work for you and the ways that you want to approach things and what you might want to ask for. Again, Anna will certainly have better recommendations than I do about what you can actually ask for or what you should be asking for. But I think it's in so many ways, it's practice a little bit and figuring out what does work for you. But I think that we as employers and as organizations in general can make that much easier for people by having managers who are trained in how to respond when someone talks to them about these things. I think that's a huge part of it, so that the onus isn't entirely on that person. And I've had some conversations where the other person is very awkward about it, and I've had some where they're completely fine with it. And it is definitely much easier to have it when the other person is very open and reciprocal to the conversation. I'm very now happy to just like bulldoze my way through the conversation, and it's fine either way. But that certainly took a lot of practice.
Yeah, and just finding somebody that understands. You're absolutely right, because even, you know, menopause or period or anything around the topic, you kind of occasionally you'll get that person that just sort of thinks, oh, it's just, you know, it's just women problems, it's just a women's issue, and you do think actually it's not. And Anna, you were saying that earlier, it affects everybody. It's not just women. Would you agree with what Sasha was saying?
I would. And so often line managers are men, aren't they, Sasha? So it can feel uncomfortable. So the more training everyone has, including managers in the menopause, the better, honestly. And I really believe every company should have a menopause policy with guidelines. So you can go and ask them, can I see the menopause policy, please? And then you know what your rights are, what's there to help you. You know, the work has a duty of care to look after you, so they need to provide the rest breaks, somewhere for you to rest if you're really fatigued. You know, if you need to go and have a quick 20 minutes nap, you need snacks, you need a fan, maybe you need some cool spritz on your table, and maybe, you know, you're in a meeting perhaps, and you do get that brain fog. It's nice if people know what's happening, so actually they can step in and support you, you know.
Yes,
It's
which
really
I think most people, your colleagues, you would hope, are supportive if they do know those things, and they think it's okay, you know, we'll pick up where you need. I think it's just people talking about it more and understanding.
Absolutely. And it doesn't last forever, does it? It's just a stage, a transition in your life. It's going to change. It's going to get better. Some people really sail through it and others struggle. So going to the GP, asking for maybe potentially HRT if that's what suits. There's lots of other vitamins. You were talking about B12, or there's all sorts of natural alternatives that can help. So, and just, you know, really taking the time, because we're so used to women are so used to being the caregivers at home, parents who are getting older, you know, and actually we really need to look after ourselves in this time. It's potentially it's an exciting time. Come back to ourselves, you know, look to the future. There's so much to look forward to, isn't there?
Yes.
You know, we're going to be working for another, you know, what age do you think, Sasha, are women staying in the tech industry for? Probably 68 or roughly? What sort of age are people retiring these days?
I think it's tricky to say, partly because I've always worked in smaller companies, so it tends to skew younger, but definitely well into the 60s, I'd say. Like, we get people joining TechSwitch who are in their early 50s who are saying, yeah, I'd like to start a new career in tech, and you know, they're planning on having a decade, maybe two, where they're just like, yeah, I want to go off and pursue this passion now. So yeah, I think it's and then
they're going to be post-menopausal, so you know, the work, and we want to retain these amazing women and their skills. They bring so much value to the tech industry, because the percentage of women is, what is it, 20%, 18% roughly, and we want more women, don't we?
Yes, and good companies know that as well, and they know that to retain the good talent, you need to put certain things in place, and you need to, you know, it's not just you know, talking about it in the press or coming out with a great story. It's actually putting things in place like this to help you know, ladies through their menopause symptoms. You know, it's just a lot more than companies just saying we want women in tech. You actually obviously have to follow through with some really good policies to support them. So absolutely.
And then perhaps, sorry, one other thing is just, you know, to actually train up menopause mentors in the workplace.
Yes.
And that's what we can help with at Period and Pause as well. Just those women who have all that knowledge can then share that knowledge, or men, they don't have to be women, it could be men, you know, everybody. Yes. But having a specific person you can go to for advice is absolutely brilliant, I think.
And if you don't have somebody, for instance, at work that you think you can go to, for our listeners, do you have any advice for our listeners who might be struggling at work with menopause symptoms? For instance, if they don't have a mentor that they can go to, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I would say it depends what the issues are, really. You know, if they're not being listened to, for example, or feel you know, they're really struggling perhaps with workload or pace of work. And I think it's really important to share your concerns with family, friends, doctor. Reach out to us at Period and Pause. There's lots of support out there, and you know, work it out, sort out what are the symptoms, write them down, and then what can you do for each one. You know, they're all manageable. So it's just getting a little bit of advice and help and talking is the first step to, you know, things getting easier, if they can.
Yes.
I mean, from my own story, you know, I really had probably nearly every symptom under the sun going through the surgical menopause. It was hideous, including tinnitus. I mean, absolutely outrageous symptoms. So I know I'm so much better now that it is, you know, that's quite an extreme story, but perimenopause doesn't have to be like that. And there are so many things we can do to make life easier. And definitely, you know, if the work isn't being supportive, workplace isn't being supportive, they have the duty of care, you have rights, seek support, and then we or a friend or another colleague can help advocate for you.
Yes, definitely. And Sasha, yourself, any advice for anybody that's really struggling with their symptoms?
Yeah, I think just at the end there, what Anna said about having an advocate as well is really important. And that's why I was sort of saying, if your initial conversation has to be someone who's maybe nothing to do with you in the workplace, but perhaps is, just a friend or something at work that you can use as your advocate, just to be there in the room for you. Because I think as people generally, we're not very good at advocating for ourselves. And it's one of the things I do as well, is I advocate for employees at work as a separate part of my role. And it's always so interesting for me how much more pushy I'm able to be as an advocate, or much more kind of forceful, or say like, no, hang on a minute, what you said there, that wasn't okay, you can't say that to them.
Yeah, whereas, about other people, not about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, hang on a minute, no, this isn't on. And that will help so much, because then there's that bit of a buffer as well, and you feel like there's someone who's on your side about it. But absolutely, also, talking to family and friends about it, so that they can also support you and they can help you, and you're not struggling through this by yourself, trying to hide anything or trying to pretend that everything's absolutely okay. Because at the end of the day, it will be so much better for you and for them if you talk to them about it. And I think that's the thing, is I think particularly as women, we're so often taught to kind of hide our struggles and our pain. When we have period pains, we get on with things, and like, we don't tell people about them. And when it comes to things where you're really struggling, we should be sharing them so much more, and we should be saying, actually, I'm I can't do this, or could you do this for me? Can you take this off my hands? Because like Anne was saying, it affects absolutely everyone around you, and it will make everyone's life better the more that you're able to share that, and to be able to be open and honest, and to ask for help.
Yes, definitely. And we are almost out of time, ladies, but I wanted to ask you both a couple of quick questions. TechSwitch runs a program that supports women returners. Can you just tell us a little bit about that and its impact?
Yeah, sure. So it's for women returners and career switchers. So it doesn't matter if you haven't taken a break from work, you can still join. But basically, it's a 12-week software development bootcamp. So we teach full stack software development. And then we find you an 18-month placement in industry following the bootcamp. We also provide, like I said, a lot of mentoring and support throughout. There's a little alumni group for afterwards, and we have regular meetups. We normally have like a Christmas get together and everything, where everyone who's been through the course will come along and we'll all catch up. But basically, it's a way that if you have been, particularly if you've been dabbling in coding a little bit, maybe doing a couple of online courses, that sort of thing, and you think, actually, I want to know what it's like to do the role of a software developer, that's what we're there for. So we're less of a coding bootcamp, and we're more a vocational software development course. So we'll teach you all about how it works, about what your kind of day-to-day will be like. We'll get you doing projects, we'll get you pairing, we'll get you working in a little team. And all of our trainers are people who are currently actual software developers. So they give you very up-to-date anecdotes on what it's like to be a software developer in the workplace. So that's what TechSwitch is.
Amazing, because a lot of our community are returners to tech, or they're transitioning from one career into technology. I've had countless ladies on the podcast tell me that they have transitioned into tech later in life, and lots of ladies on our live events as well, they ask questions about how to transition into a career in tech. So I'm sure our community are going to be so interested to look up TechSwitch and read all about yous. And Anna, I wanted to ask you quick, what's next for Period and Pause?
Ooh, that's a very exciting time. So what's next? Lots is next. We're actually doing a community project. So this is slightly different from working with TechSwitch, which we love. It's such an amazing company and fun. The training, it just sounds fun that even I want to do it. I'm not techie, but I'd be on it like a shot. Yes, so we're doing a community project in Camden, helping women's groups learn about menopause, so that they can advocate for each other and, get the support they need. So getting the word out there. We're also doing a schools project in the autumn, which we're really excited about, and that's talking about menstrual health and menopause with a local secondary school. So that's our charitable side of our work, and then we're carrying on with the tech industry, so supporting women, with our talks and workshops and our mentoring. Yeah, it's really, I'm just so excited about it, honestly. Brilliant.
Yes, and as you've both said throughout this conversation, it's just ensuring that more conversations like this happen, and I'm so pleased that you both agreed to come on and have a chat about menopause today on the podcast. We haven't had it yet on our podcast, and I think it's conversations that we should continue to keep having in the future. So thank you so much, Sasha and Anna, for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Absolutely lovely. Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, really lovely.
Good.
Thank you.
And for everybody listening, as always, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you again next time.